Hello and welcome to All Film, All the Time, Always. I'm Monica Hoenig. I teach film at Viewpoint School, and this is a podcast that I do with my former film students in the hopes that my conversation with film alumni can help them make their decisions as far as career choices, going into film school, staying in film school, getting into the industry, and getting jobs. And so today, my guest is...
I'm Maddie White. I graduated in 2019. I went to film school at London College of Communication, which is part of University of the Arts London, which is in London, England. And I moved back to LA a few years ago, and I've been doing jobs in the industry, jobs out of the industry, and everything in between.
Okay, great, fantastic. It's really, really nice to have you, Maddie, because I have actually followed your career a little bit. Well, we've been following each other's careers a little bit ever since high school. We have kept in touch, and I have seen the things that you've done since. I have heard so many stories. I have met up with you in London, and I can't wait for you to share your experiences with my students. You have already sat in one of my classes earlier this morning, one of my Film 4 classes, and you gave fantastic editing notes for them, which is great. I can't wait to see the second cut. And you are welcome to come to the symposium at the end of May. So let's start a little bit about film school application process. My seniors just finished applying. They are now getting acceptances to different film schools. Can you tell me about your decision of going into, what is the exact name of the school?
London College of Communication.
London College of Communications. Why did you decide to go there, and what was the application process like? And what did you study specifically?
I definitely applying to school in the UK is going to be pretty different to applying to school in the US. And that was the only school that I did apply to overseas. I did go through traditional application processes for other schools that I didn't end up going to. But in terms of my process to get in there, it was an in-person interview that I had to have both a physical portfolio of things like scripts and storyboards and photography and mood boards and the physical component to everything that turns into the digital component. And they actually tell you at the end of the interview if you got into the program or not. And they call it a diagnostic interview because within the school, there's 7 or 8 different film courses that range from things that are more heavy in theory, things that are more TV-based, things that are more production-based. And they decide during the interview which slot you fall into, to the point where even in the UK, they have something called a foundation year. Most degrees are 3 years, but you can do a first year where you explore all of those different lanes. But if there's somebody that's really, focused and looks like they're really ready to go to the degree level, they will just put you into the degree, which is what happened to me with that application, which was really cool. But I really wasn't sure if I wanted to go to film school until I almost feel like 2 months before the beginning of my senior year. I felt like I knew I loved film. I knew it was what I wanted to do, but I didn't know if going to school was going to be the best choice for me. I thought, okay, I have this opportunity. I know I want to go to college. I know I want to study something. If I know I'm going to be doing film for the rest of my life, maybe I want to study something different. Maybe I want to do psychology. Maybe I just want to take this opportunity to be a student and go to college. And I found in the process of picking the things, I was like, well, no, what do I actually want to do every day? I want to make movies. Mm-hmm. And so I made the kind of last minute switch to doing film school. And the application was pretty much, I just felt like so much of that is just showing who you are and like what you want to be as a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I had a much clearer idea of what that was when I was 18 versus now. A lot more confidence at 18 than now. And I knew exactly who I was. I knew exactly the films that I wanted to make. Mm-hmm. And I said as much in my interview and with what I'd made so far. And so that process was really, okay, how do I distill these big ideas I have for myself and the movies that I've already made and the work that I've done at school, how do I distill that and show that in the simplest way possible, which ironically is kind of exactly what you're doing with films and scripts every day. But that was kind of the majority of that process.
Well, I remember you were running around with a huge portfolio. Like your portfolio was physical.
Oh, it had to be 20 by 30. Like it was a book.
It was the most beautiful, bound, gorgeous book I've ever seen in my life. It had a lot of work into it. Did you apply to any other schools and any other maybe majors?
I did. I applied to, so at that school, because it's diagnostic, I just applied to I said I wanted to specialize in film, but they decided for me what that film was going to be at the school. And then I did apply to, I knew I wanted to, I made the decision that like I grew up in LA, I'm always going to have LA connections. I went to a private school in LA. I'm always going to have private school LA connections. There wasn't a really big desire for me to stay in LA and go to film school in LA. I had a real big desire to learn how other people make films, whether that's as close as the East Coast or whether that's in a different country like Paris or London. I just felt like I'd gotten such a great basis and like great foundation of film education from high school, which is just such a insane experience that you just don't realize you have until you leave, and then you're regretting and you wish you'd done more with it. Yeah. But because of that, I just really didn't have a big desire to go to a USC or a UCLA or go to a more traditional LA film school and be in Hollywood. I just felt like when I'm coming out of college, I would rather be the one that's come from seeing things a little differently than be one of 20 USC grads trying to get in the mailroom at CAA. That was kind of...
That makes absolutely sense, right? So when you applied and you made this portfolio, what would you suggest, which was different from any, like USC and all those, NYU, they will have a different kind of application system, but what would you advise my current junior and senior students when they put together their portfolios to go to film school? What should they concentrate on?
I think the biggest thing is the stuff that you have had the most hand in making, like the stuff that's the most you. So even that if that doesn't have the highest production value, the stuff that you've written or the stuff that you shot or the stuff that you directed, do that over the thing that you PA'd on, or do that over something that you had a smaller role on, even if you don't feel like the production value is as impressive. Production value can be taught, it can be bought. Creative ideas can't be taught or bought. So that's what I feel like people look for. That's
yes,
the thing
you feel
that
they are looking for more of the story and
100%.
Your ideas of how to tell the story.
Which is funny, because ironically, that's not what they look for when you leave and you're trying to make a movie.
What are they looking for?
Money and IP.
Sorry. Yes.
But I feel like when you're applying and because film school is still a school. It is still it's an institution. You're going to learn from practitioners that are teachers and professors. There will be people that come in and speak to you that are in the industry, but you've got to understand that you're going into a film school. Like, that is an environment in and of itself. You're not going into the real world. So what you're trying to present to an admissions committee it's an actual admissions committee. It's not a bunch of people from the industry sitting around. No, that's a school, that's an academic institution's admissions committee. And what they're looking for is ideas and creativity. They don't care about production value as much. They care about who you are, how you see the world, what are you going to bring to the table, what interesting ideas are you going to present. And that's the stuff that I think is the most important to distill. And I feel like how do you do things differently is the thing that I feel like set my stuff apart when I was applying, because I really had this, that was my whole thing, is I just really saw one thing and go, no, I want to do the opposite. And how do I do the opposite? And I feel like if you can focus on what makes you different, as opposed to trying to be the next version of X film or trying to recreate X film, like, no, how are you going to recreate that film but you? How are you going to make your film? Like, what is your film? I think that's what people want to know, as opposed to how best can you emulate Jaws? No, like, what's your movie about the shark? Like, that's what I think an admissions committee might want to know more than.
So once you get in, then
Yep.
do you get to keep that creativity that separates you? Do they nurture it? I'm specifically talking about your school.
Yeah, it was definitely, it's so case by case. I would have a professor in one class that I felt like was really, really nurturing, really, you know, let me be me. And then in another essence, I wouldn't. It's so easy to accidentally, you know, ruffle a small teenage girl's feathers. Like, we're all super sensitive people. Artists are really sensitive people. And I think that was something that I wasn't prepared for when I went to college. I was someone that was very, very sure of myself in high school, almost to a fault. Like, I knew who I was really confident. And then when I went to college, I felt like I didn't know who that was. Like, I was living in a different country by myself. I feel like if I look back at college, the most I got out of that was learning how to be an adult. Like, the way I went to school was very different to being in a college. I lived off campus. I lived in a city. That I didn't know. My university was essentially an office building that I commuted to every day, 30 minutes via the train. Like, it was just a different setup than when you're on a campus and you're in this environment. But because of that, I feel like there was a huge opportunity within the course you had to fight if you wanted to make the film that you wanted to make. So we were always pitching, we were always getting them approved, and you had to, if you wanted to make a movie, if you wanted to direct, or if you wanted to write, you had to be the best director or the best writer. Like, it was a meritocracy. It got either voted on or greenlit by your peers, or it got voted on or greenlit by an industry panel, or it got voted on and greenlit by your professors. So because of that, I felt like a real big push to be the best for school and like be the best for what I thought my peers would want or what I thought my academic advisors would want. And so I found myself kind of, in order to get my film made, altering what might have been, you know, creative intuition to fit.
But do you think that somehow that's similar to
absolutely
the real world?
100%.
Because you're always doing that.
Totally. And you're forming all of your, and I think I'm really grateful for looking at different ways of, okay, how can I alter this original idea I have into making it something for an audience?
Well, marketable.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
I think where that fails is I think there's times when once you've got your idea greenlit and once you're there and you're in production and you're in the weeds, there's like a power dynamic that doesn't really exist in the industry, in which, like, once you're a director and you're in the editing room, you're getting paid. You can leave. If the exec comes in and wants to recut your film, it sucks. You're like, that's just the way life is. You're still getting paid and you can still walk away. I found myself really striving for grades and for marks and for academic validation, and that definitely had an impact on my filmmaking. And especially if you get a bad professor, if you get a bad tutor, you can just find yourself not striving towards notes that don't really feel good to you. And that's definitely how I felt at the end of my time at film school.
Which is, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, a different experience from what you experienced here at Viewpoint, specifically maybe your Film 4 project.
Yeah,
but even all the others.
It's really interesting because the format is very similar. So, like, you come into Film 4, you come into, you know, your thesis film at college, and you're pitching an idea amongst your peers, and your peers vote. In college, it was a board of industry people that voted on it. But then it's like, okay, in college, the people that greenlit it weren't the people that assessed it at the end. Versus here, the people that greenlit it are the people constantly assessing it and constantly giving it feedback. And I think that part of making Cat and making our Film 4 project was so fulfilling because there was a real, to clarify, I came off the summer of junior year and walked into the film classroom and said, "Hi guys, so we're making a film and it's all going to be shot in a pool." We're going to shoot it all underwater, and it's going to be great. And Hoenig looked like...
we said what?
We said, okay, great, let's do it, Maddie. Let's do it. After many, there was a little fear.
Yeah.
There was the fear of God instilled in Hoenig when I walked in that classroom. But at no point was anyone like, well, no, Maddie, like, how are you going to make that film? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it was like, okay, you want to do that? Tell us how you're going to do it. Like, show us if you want to do that. Show us how you're going to do it. And then that's what we did. We spent the whole year kind of going, okay, how can we want to put a camera underwater? How does that work? Let's figure it out. Let's find, and you get roadblock after roadblock and you just work around it. But having that and then being supported through that whole process and getting constant feedback from you and from, people who we sent the later cuts of that film to, that was I look back at that after doing my college experience with a lot of love and a lot of, like, it was a very fulfilling experience for, like,
that is so nice.
A kid with, like, big ideas and weird ideas who's like, yeah, let's make a film about an alcoholic who's sitting at the bottom of a pool. Like, it didn't really seem like that was going to be okay. And to be supported through that process and to turn that into something that I could not have done by myself. And that was truly very different from what the original idea had been. I never would have got there without the support that came from the school and from my peers and from you and from everyone here who let me
make a film. It was a fantastic year, and it's a great film. It's one of the most successful films that we have made at this school, and I show it to my students every year. No matter how old they are, 7th, 8th grade, they will love that film. There is something really, it grabs them.
It's so funny. I feel like I go through, I'd say my entire college experience. I left high school. I got into film festivals. I thought, oh, okay, cool, whatever. I was like, no, that's just my high school film. Like, that's not it. I don't know. And then being how many ever years away from it now, I look at it and I just have a lot of love for it. And I just see a young girl exploring ideas. And I'm so grateful for that experience and for being able to, like, lead that and take the reins on that and turn that into something pretty special. Like, I have a lot of love and fond memories for that entire experience.
I'm glad to hear that. That's amazing. Tell me about, you're in college, you're making your films, you're thinking about getting into the industry at that point, I'm assuming. And what are the steps you're taking at that point?
So I'd say the UK is a lot more set up in terms of supporting young filmmakers. They have a lot of literally government-funded apprenticeships and trainee schemes, and none of that really exists in the US. So a lot of what I was looking at were those things, and you can get, trainee schemes at, like BBC or, on the big studio sets. Like there's a lot, they're really competitive and hard to get into. But you start, asking your film teachers what they're doing on the weekends and what work are they doing and how can I start doing that? And you learn pretty quickly that the only way you're going to get on there is if you keep bugging people. And you're good at what you do.
I did want to actually ask you about that because I went to 2 film schools. I'm recognizing it, but my students most likely don't recognize that. The relationships they build with their teachers will get them their first, second, third jobs, and with their peers.
I'd say that and peers. Like, for me, there's so much. The film industry is such a hard thing to break into, and the annoying answer is that nobody's journey into it is the same. There's no path that I can say you do X, Y, Z, and that's why it can be really hard when you're, you're looking at someone like Martin Scorsese, you're looking at these big filmmakers and they're like, oh, I didn't go to film school, or oh, I did go to film school. And it's like, okay, well, they did, but your journey is going to be so different. The people that you should be looking at are your peers. How are they progressing through the industry? What are they doing? Because they're at the same, often not, it's never the same playing field, but they're entering the same industry you are. And the reality is the industry changes every 5 years or even
it does
less.
Doesn't it
dramatically, like
it is dramatically different today. This is April of 2025 than it was 5 years ago.
Easily.
It's not the same.
No, you've got strikes, you've got a whole heap of things that are constantly impacting it. You've got streaming, like there's so many different facets of it, and the only way you can job in film is by knowing people and talking to people. Like,
say this again, please.
It sucks. I know it's not a great answer, but it's the truth. Like, and I do believe that in almost any job. Like, jobs are relationship based. Film jobs are even more relationship based than anything. It's, you're committing, and I think most of it is at a 9 to 5, you're going 9 to 5, you're sitting at a computer, you're doing whatever you do. You might not interact with everyone. If you're committing to working on a film set, you're looking at a minimum 12-hour commitment. So that means that you're hanging out with these people for 12 hours in an incredibly stressful, often hot, you're on your feet, you're not sitting down. You get fed when they say you can eat, and that's it. And you're in this like pressure cooker. So no, I don't want to work with somebody I don't like.
Right, you have to be nice. That's such a number one rule.
Nice, and you have to want to do the work. You have to want to get your hands dirty, and you, like, the people, like, if you love film, you love film. Like, you're on that set and you're having fun, and it's like so stressful and you want to rip your hair out, but you're in it, and that's a very particular type of person. And so I feel like there's that side of it, there's the production side, but the thing that I really have only realized in the past 2 years is, like, you can love film and there are so many other jobs for you. There's marketing, there's sales, there's distribution, there's streaming, there's social media marketing, there's development, there's so many, there's assistants, there's managers, there's PR, there are so many other departments. There's more traditionally corporate jobs that are all related to film. And so if you don't think you're the person that wants to work on a set, but this is something that you love, like, there are so many other avenues, even if that's your 9 to 5. Like, I have a friend of mine who works at a film marketing agency, but is a really, really incredibly talented writer and is a managed and represented writer. But we've had multiple conversations where she's said, even if I got my film up, I got my big break, I don't know if I'd quit my job.
Exactly.
Because the economic security of that and health insurance and blah, blah, blah is so great. And she's still in film. Like, I think that when you're growing up and you're like, oh, I want to be a director, I want to be a writer, I want to be a producer, you see those credits because they're the first line credits, of course. Right. But look at that credit list. It goes on forever and ever. And then what's even not on there is all the people that then got that out there. Like, you can get so creative and have so much fun in sales or in marketing or in distribution, and then it gets even more nuanced. You can be in festival distribution. You could work at film festivals. You could work for the Academy. Like, there's so many other industries. If you love cameras, go be a camera tech at a rental house. They need you. That's right. Like, there are so many fun, interesting jobs that aren't necessarily a PA or aren't like the first most obvious choice. And if you kind of figure out what your niche is and what you want to chase, there's a really cool way in where you get to still be around what you love, but without it kind of feeling like, I don't believe production is for everyone.
Feeling like this is the only try that I can do and I cannot get.
Exactly. And it's feast or famine. No, like, there are very normal salaried jobs.
Right. Like, I'm happy that the students are hearing the amount of avenues that they can take to actually get into the industry, around the industry. It's sometimes they are very narrow focused, and it's very difficult to get those specific little jobs that they think that they should be getting. Totally. So then what did you get? Or how did you go about getting your first few jobs in the industry after college? I
had a pretty particular situation, which ended up being through a friend of a friend. I got an offer to originally do some writing and some editing on a film script that she'd gotten private funding for. It was an indie film, and it was set in Australia. I'm from Australia, which is why the Australia connection. And I went out there and I edited the script, and I did a lot of work on it, and then I got asked to potentially come on as a director for it, which you're talking like, I'm getting asked this. I'm fresh out of film school. I'm like, oh my God, I'm the coolest, most successful person ever. I can't believe I'm getting offered this. Like, this does not happen. Like, someone's playing a practical joke. And like many indie films, the money isn't where it needs to be, or it collapses. And so that didn't end up materializing. And I spent like 3 months of my life in Australia working very hard on this project. And by the end of that, I felt so burnt out. I was like, wait, hold on. What have I decided to do? This is not what I thought I was going to be doing. This is not, I felt really, I think also coming out of film school and then going through the process of presenting ideas to people that were paying you for the first time, I personally felt really like I was super insecure and I wasn't really ready to get the feedback. And I honestly was not ready to be putting myself out there in that way. I was really sensitive. I was just coming off of a big life experience and I didn't give myself time to transition into the next, which is how life works. But I definitely had to say, okay, I think I need to take a quick step back here. This was not what I thought I was going to do. And then coincidentally, a friend of mine that I grew up with was hiring at a furniture store. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I need a job. I'm just going to go work at this furniture store. And it has ended up being the most insane, fulfilling job for me, where like I have a really supportive boss. And I just started, it was the first job I've ever had where I go to work and I clock out and I don't think about it.
Oh,
I just go do the job. And I was learning all kinds of skills. I'm like, great customer service. And I was just, for the first time, I was like, okay, wait, maybe it's not film. And then I'm like doing it and I'm like a week or like a month into it. And then I'm like, oh, no, it's definitely film. And I actually found for me having the structure, going from being freelance and really focusing on my writing to then going to having, I'm working 9 to 5. I was so much more productive. I mean, within the first 3 months, I had recut a short film I'd done. I had a new draft of a feature I'd written. I had so many more ideas. I was working on my lunch breaks. I was working after work. Having the structure of I needed to be at a certain place every day. I was up. I was around people. I was living life like that. I love writing. I love stories. It's what I love the most about film, and you can't write if you haven't lived life. And so I felt working my little furniture job, I'm meeting all these people, I'm learning about their houses and their life stories and their divorces, and I'm hearing all of these fantastic stories, and that just, it's inspiring being around people. I'm meeting these wonderful coworkers who come from so many different walks of life, and I just felt like I got back in my groove. And then I was going, oh, well, I'm kind of taking home some commission here. Like, what can I do with this commission? And I started using that to fund short films is what I've been doing. So that really was kind of the time when I thought, okay, this works.
okay.
And I had toyed with the idea of going to grad school. Like, I felt really lost, and I looked at, the structure of this job is really great for me. And then I got to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm looking at a $150,000 bill here to make a few films versus I'm getting paid. I'm working this job. I'm getting paid
To actually write something.
to write and to make the films that I want to make. And what I don't get out of that is the connections that come from grad school. But there is a real big difference between people at school and the connections that you make at school and people working in the industry. A film school film is still a film school film, and it feels very different from an industry film, and it feels very different from an industry set. And so I found just the friends that I made doing the last short that I did, and like the amazing crew that kind of built up around that. I learned so much from them, and these are people that are working in the industry. These are
They are
ACs
industry
and,
professionals, made a short film that had nothing to do with it.
that are all bored, don't have a bunch of work from the strikes, and all gathered around this
Which is
cool little
lucky
chick.
for
It worked out for me 100%, but it was really, you learn so much by doing, especially with film. And so I think
When is this film coming out?
So it's in post-production now. I get my cut back from sound the end of this week, and then I get it back from color the end of next. So hopefully on a festival screen near you soon.
Okay.
By the end of the year.
And it's like how long?
It's 11 minutes.
And how long did it take to shoot?
We shot it in 2 days.
So similar to Film 4's, honestly.
So similar.
So similar.
And I took a lot from it. I hadn't shot anything in a while. I didn't want to shoot anything big. The entire thing takes place in 2 rooms. And that was very intentional. I wanted to write something that was super easy to do, that I could bang out, that was a low scope, but had like a really interesting story. And so this idea really came out of that. And it was a really, really simple idea. It was a really simple script. It is at its core a bunch of friends sitting in a living room remembering the night before differently. But it's just a conversation piece as I'm talking.
Oh, that's great. It's like Rashomon.
Kind of, yes.
Okay. All right, very good.
So it's just like I took a simple idea, but even then, I'm talking like 11 minutes that we were rushing, like 2-3 max takes of everything that we did. Like, it was a lean, mean machine, and we did such meticulous planning of our shot setups and of everything that we did so that we were moving the camera the least amount possible. We were doing and by moving, I don't mean not moving the camera around, but by not resetting up every couple takes, keeping it, you know, how much can we shoot from one setup. And it was just I just felt like I had everything when I was on that set. I felt like everything I'd kind of learned from school and from film school and just from life kind of came together to make it make sense for me. And it was a really fulfilling process. And it was the first time that kind of, this thesis that I've had of like, I can work this job at this store, but I can still do film. And I proved to myself that I could still do that and be in it and be capable of making something that I'm ultimately really proud of. So
this film that is coming out next week, can we see it?
Yes.
And can I ask you don't have to disclose, but that is not free anymore.
Oh, no.
This is not, we're not just making a movie in a film 4 class where we give you the equipment. So how much money are we talking, generally speaking?
It came in under 20 grand, or under 15. But like, there's so many costs associated with that I just haven't calculated in that as well. There's, after that, there's post-production, there's film festival fees that I just don't even want to think about. But the equipment is half of that. Like, and then I paid all my actors.
You had to rent equipment.
Had to rent equipment,
had to
rent a
hire
location, hire actors. It adds up so unbelievably. I'm paying a casting director. I'm paying my crew. I'm feeding my crew. I'm obviously not paying myself. I'm getting costumes. There's so many more things that go into it than you think. And they just cost so much money.
So much money.
And it's really like, you're looking at like, if you're going to make an indie movie, like, it is kind of like $20,000 a day. Like,
that's right.
$15,000 to $20,000 a day. And that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
To have to come up with. And what's really unfortunate is that is like, that used to be the short that you could get into the film festival, and that could really launch your career. Now the 20-minute short is the feature, is the 1 hour and a half indie feature. That's like
what do you mean? Tell me this again.
I feel like the new standard for how are you going to get a bigger job, or how are you going to get picked up by a studio, how are you going to be able to get bigger projects, is you need to make an indie feature. I don't think that a short cuts it anymore. So a 20-minute
short is not going to cut it anymore. It cannot be your calling card.
Yeah.
Your first feature is your calling card. Congratulations.
Yeah. So raised $2 million.
Is that the next goal? Are you working 100%, on your first feature?
That is my goal. I've written a few. They all, have varying and different scopes. I love making short films a lot. I actually really adore the format of it. I like it being smaller scale. I don't think I will ever stop making short films. I just think they're really great for your brain and just to keep you going, and they are easier to do. But that is definitely the goal, is to be able to get a feature made, for sure.
So before we get to your feature, when we get to it, you did share a couple of images with me by the way, what is the title of this short film?
Second Look.
Second Look.
Yep.
Okay. So you showed me a couple of images that is basically beautifully drawn storyboard and the final image of what it actually looks like. And this is a very nice shot. Tell me about this one. You said 2 locations and 2 or 3 actors?
I think we had 5 actors total. It was all shot in one location, all in one house, in 2, when I say 2 locations, it was a hallway in a living room. And that last shot was the opening shot of the film, and that was my original inspiration, that like overhead. was I really just like this idea of having these three people from above and that's kind of how we open the film, and they're in varying levels.
So did these images come to you first, or the story came first and then the images sort of?
Ooh, I had the idea for a story where you had a bunch of different, like a very vague idea of, I really like the idea of exploring when people look at things differently and how memories can be really different based on who's seen it and in what state that they were in. And so I had that kind of brewing, and then I actually saw, this sounds so pretentious. Like I saw like a Renaissance painting that had a really similar framing.
It was. And I have to go back again. Like
it's that first image.
I don't know how to go back.
And it just that really stuck, like it inspired me. And then I was like, oh, I actually kind of like the idea of it being overhead. And then
that's exactly what it looks like. Okay.
It came from that. We started developing, and the whole film's actually shot on a circular track. So
which is?
We have, it was supposed to be a track, so like a dolly track, that was supposed to go completely around a bed. So it was supposed to be moving around them. We realized very quickly that the type of location that we could afford was not the type of location that had enough room to have a bed plus a dolly track around it. So we settled for a semicircle. And it was, the whole film is about people's relationships to each other and about looks and reactions and side eyes. And so it was really important to me that every face was in the frame where possible. So we chose to shoot on anamorphic, which is the wider format, and having the dolly track go around it, we just did all of our coverage on that.
So did you even have coverage, or you just had long sweeping shots?
We had long sweeping. So we did two kind of our wides, which were on a wider lens, and we went around them, and then we punched into a tighter lens. But the nature of anamorphic on a wide format is you just cannot get that close. You can't get that tight. So our close-ups weren't that close up, but it meant that you could see everyone's reactions. So what we did was we did the master where we kept the camera in one place, and then we picked a character. Our close-ups were locking in on one person as we moved around and just making sure that their face was in focus the whole time and they were the focus, not the whole frame. And so that was our entire second day of shooting, was just basically a 7-minute dialogue scene going back and forth on the semicircle.
Well, it looks incredibly beautiful, and I can't wait to see it. Please share it with us. And
absolutely.
Next time we could put a bed in here and then have a circular
there you go.
track.
We would have had room in here.
You would have had room in here. Yes. Good. Okay, I think we might have to go, but before we go, I would maybe a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Particularly, can you give me, not me, but the current film students, any advice on them finishing up their film for projects, and then advice on that? What should they concentrate on? What should they focus mostly, now that we are kind of in the middle of the editing process? And then getting ready for college.
I feel like my advice on that is, with like the film 4 and with any film that you make, you are making it. Like, if you shot something and you don't like it, get rid of it. There's no need to plug yourself into a hole or push yourself into a direction. If you did something that you don't like, you don't need to keep it just because you spent time on it. Just get rid of it. And I kind of look at like what you're doing and going into college the same way. There's no reason to have to do things because you should do things, or because you think you should do things, or because your friends are doing things, or because that's what you're supposed to be doing, because people on Instagram are doing it. I would have been so much happier if I'd cut myself some slack and just given myself the opportunity to go, wait, no, I'm in charge here, and I make the rules, and I can pick exactly what I want to do on any given day. I can pick the films the stories I want to tell. And I feel like if you can stay true to that, decisions just tend to be a little easier to make. Like, it's a time in your life when you can be selfish. You don't have responsibilities. You have the luxury of being selfish, and you have the luxury of figuring out who you are. And I think making your film 4 project should be so fun, and it should be exactly what you want it to be. And while it might not be what you had in your head when you were thinking about it, it's like, just don't be afraid to cut half of it out if you don't like it. Like, I just think keep your story. Please keep your stories intact.
It's easier said than done.
100%.
Do you remember your film for?
I do remember
I could
it.
not have asked you to cut half of it. No way.
I look at it differently now. I look at it differently.
Yes.
But I do think so much of that, like, relates to life as well. And, like, you really are in charge of your own life, and you're in charge of making the choices that you want to make. And if you can kind of remind yourself of that every once in a while, and also remember that it is about the choices, it's about the process, it's not about the finish line. Like, yeah, I'd love to make a feature. If I pin all my hopes and dreams on getting a feature made, I'm going to be the most unhappy person alive. If I pin all my hopes and dreams on writing the best feature I can and on enjoying the process of getting there, I'm so much happier, because every day I'm doing something. I'm thinking about that script on the drive home. I'm writing a little bit when I get home. I'm enjoying the process. And I think that is the most important part. I think that's the ticket, and it's that process, and it's those experiences that are going to let you write good stories and are going to let you tell good stories and are going to make you make connections. We don't make connections by shoving resumes and CVs in people's faces. We make connections by talking about how cool their shirt is, or what, or what hobbies they did as they were a kid, or you surf, I surf, how cool. Like, that's how industry connections are made. It's not on LinkedIn. It's on running into someone in a coffee shop and go, oh, you also happen to do what I do? Oh, great. Like, let's go get a drink, or let's get lunch, or, learn how to make connections with people that aren't a LinkedIn connection. Learn how to make, like, those are the people that you're going to want to help. Those are the people that are going to want to mentor you. Those are the people that can get you places.
Well, that's also good life lessons.
Yes.
So on that, I want to thank you so much for coming. And
thank you for having me.
Please come back again. Maybe when you're doing your feature or after.
Please.
Yes. So thank you so much, Maddie.
Thank you for having me.